Good evening. My name is Richard Crean and I'm Chair of the Permanent Public Building Committee. Welcome to the June 9th, 2025 meeting of the committee. Under Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, issued March 12, 2020, and in effect until the termination of that edict, meeting of public bodies may be conducted virtually, provided that adequate access is provided to the public. On March 28, 2025, the remote public meeting provision was extended through June 30th of 2027. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded via Zoom and will be uploaded to the town's YouTube channel for publication, later viewing, and administrative purposes. I believe all the members who are participating tonight will be in person. So we will, because it is a hybrid meeting, we will conduct votes by roll call vote. At this time, I would like to welcome our guests, our special guests from HMFH Architects, who will be working on the Pollard project. And I thought we would go around the room and introduce ourselves formally to our guests and vice versa, starting with the patriarch of our firm.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I have had the privilege of being involved with lots of projects and different members of the committee over the years. It's been a real pleasure to do that. But my background is engineering, registered professional engineer, lots of engineering, design, construction, work both in the private sector, and I've been involved since 1996 on this committee and loving every minute.
I'm Ken Sargent. We've met senior project manager in building design and construction.
Barry DeLong with Public Facilities Building Maintenance.
Tamara Bickle, principal at Pollard Middle School.
Michael Press, school committee.
Lynn Denninger, architect. I sit on the committee.
Give yourself a ringing endorsement.
Well, we know each other, so. Hi, it's me.
You know me, Hank Gaff, Director of Building Design and Construction.
Catherine Copley, Administrative Specialist for the Building Design and Construction Department.
Stuart Chandler, PVDC.
I'm just visiting. I'm Charlie Nanda, but I represent the ACT Committee, which is a community and theater committee tracking.
Welcome.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Pete. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Matt LaRue, HMFH Architects. I'm an associate principal.
And Tina Stanislavski, I'm a principal at HMFH and be the project director for this project. And we're very excited to be here with you all.
And we look forward to working with you. Thank you very much for coming tonight as well.
Elisa Scatcherd on the school committee and also the school building committee.
Meryl Nissler, Senior Project Manager, Building Design and Construction Departments.
Hi, I'm Bob Germany, architect, and I'm PPBC and a project graduate of the Pollard School.
And again, I'm Richard Cream. I'm the attorney representative to PwC. And thank you all very much for coming.
Nice to meet you all.
Okay. Our first item for business before we get to the Pollard project is to approve the minutes of the May 19th, 2025 meeting. I understand there have been no comments received to date from the committee regarding the minutes. I'll ask one more time if any of the committee members has any comments or corrections or changes to the minutes for that were distributed to the committee. Hearing none, we'll deem the minutes to have been approved and they'll be filed accordingly. That brings us to our first substantive agenda item this evening, which is the Pollard School renovation. And for that, I'll recognize Hank.
Thank you. And some of you may have already seen this set of slides. Perhaps it's the third time for others. But we were told at recent meetings that we need to reemphasize where we are in the process with the MSBA. As you all know, that we have been accepted by the MSBA into the feasibility study. We have now finished module 2, which is forming the team with the addition of HMFH. And we are entering into module 3. Module 3 is feasibility. It includes both preliminary design program and PSR. I'll come back to that in a moment. After, and we are trying to complete this module 3 before the end of this year. Each phase has required submissions to the MSBA, and the school building committee needs to approve those submissions before they go to the MSBA. Module 4 will be schematic design. It'll be a detailed schematic, which also comes with a detailed cost estimate based upon the preferred scheme that comes out of the feasibility stage. And then with the cost estimate from module 4, that has to go to the MSBA round about June, maybe as late, targeting their August meeting. That has to be approved. Then that approved schematic design has to get special town meeting or town meeting approval in October of 2026, as well as the override vote in November of 2026. The reason for the August summer deadline on module 4 is that the ballot question has to be submitted to the Secretary of State in August, which it will not include a dollar value, but it will require that approval, majority approval. And then once that is approved, then we move into detailed design, which includes EV and construction documents and bidding. When I say bidding, we will likely bring on board a construction manager at risk during schematic design. And depending on which scheme is concluded, we will maybe have one phase, we will maybe have 2 phases, we might have 3 phases. All of that will come out of the schematic design. We've completed, as I mentioned, module 2. And then these are the pieces of the preliminary design program. I should mention that the principals have been working very hard on creating a base education plan. That draft has been transmitted to HMFH. And that will, as that education program is formed, that will be the basis of all future design. And also will help create the initial space program. You'll also be taking a deep dive on existing conditions, but fortunately we have a base that comes out of the school master plan. And there'll be a preliminary evaluation of alternatives. That's PDP, PSR, I think we have discussed, but you all have this in hard copy. I won't go through a lot, but as we've previously discussed, we need to look both at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade program, as well as just the 7th and 8th program. And we need to look at options both for the existing site and for the phaseo. And if any of you have a magic site that isn't currently on our radar, speak up as soon as possible. We found one for the Sunita Williams project, but we're not hopeful here. And there are a whole slew of local actions and approvals, and all through this process, we hope to make it very public, and we'll be working actually tomorrow with the architects and with folks over at school admin to further define that schedule. And targeting that, and depending on if we are looking at DeFazio, we'll be talking to Park and Rec, because they obviously have great interest in the DeFazio location. Schematic design, as I said, will follow robust schematic design drawings and also narratives that will give us scope and budget. And we will likely bring on a construction manager at risk as we head into schematic design. Which I think, given the scale of the project and the complexity of the logistics, is an important step. And we've talked about funding of the project. So, for the record, there's a lot more information on the MSBA site, and also the school master plan site is available. Yes, George.
Quick question. You mentioned when the project manager at risk came. Can you give us a date of that? I've forgotten exactly when that might be.
Likely, as we conclude preferred schematic report, so December. We will.
Of this year.
Of this year. Once we have a better idea of which scheme is being, will occur. What we've heard from Lyra Hill and others is that given the scale of the project, if we did design bid build, that we would have very few potential bidders. And whereas if we construct on the existing site, we will have complexities in terms of phasing, complexities of an occupied site, and so on and so forth. All of that, we think, really requires a construction manager at risk.
Don't disagree. I'm in favor of bringing that person or that firm on board as soon as possible to get them involved in the decisions that get made. And that's why I asked the question about when. Is there any intention of doing that like in the fall of this year so that we get them involved sooner? Is there any value in doing that? What might be the cost of doing that? Because I think, you know, my opinion is that we really need to see them at risk, and I think the sooner the better.
I don't know what your experience is on other projects.
I mean, we've done it both ways. We've done a hard bid, you know, and gotten really good prices from that. But on a occupied site, like the one potentially you're gonna be on, it's pretty tight. So the CM at risk might make sense in that case. The DeFazio site, maybe you could get away with a hard bid potentially. But in terms of bringing the CM on sooner, I mean, they're gonna be giving you cost information mostly at this point, right? So I think when you're getting towards the end of PSR and you're looking at the 3 different options, that might be the point where you want to engage them and have them give you some cost feedback.
That's why I think we need to look at that date and when that would be. And I think, as I said, my opinion is the earlier the better.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna cost you a little bit more.
Yeah.
For the CMR, but I think you're gonna get very worthwhile opinions, especially with regard to the cost estimate. Because this project is the largest project ever done by the town of Needham, and we still haven't figured out where all the money's coming from. And so that cost estimate is gonna be scrutinized.
It's coming from you.
And you.
And me.
I have the reputation for having developed the largest cost estimate, which is police and fire and all of that, and we carve that back, but it's not gonna be easy. This one's gonna be a tough one. And so the sooner the better to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To get that. So I think we ought to look at that date really closely and see when we should start, because it's gonna take us a little while to hire the right person.
It usually takes 2 months minimum,
Excuse me?
2 months minimum to get them on board.
That's correct.
Um,
So we're already talking about, the end of the year, back off 2 months, you're in October. Maybe we ought to start thinking about letting people know that we're looking for somebody starting in September. So that's why I asked the question.
Noted. So any other questions on that? Let me close out of this one.
Are there any other comments by the BBBC in that regard?
I
Do we all agree on that?
support it, George.
What's that?
I totally support it. I think, you know, from the chair's meeting, I think there's a level of discussion that, you know, from our standpoint, we should be pushing for sooner rather than later.
Okay,
It's a nice segue, actually, Stuart, if you'd like to comment on the chairs meeting, which you covered.
Sure, so we had the chairs meeting with all the various constituents of the committees last week, and it was a good meeting. It was a follow-up from 2 months ago. And I think that the same themes came out. First of all, a tight timeline. Can you put up I think it's the 4th slide? Because we're just highlighting a couple of questions that came up. Go down to the after forming the team right here. So one question was the local actions and approvals. Is that a really hard gate? And you know, the answer that we sort of gave, and I think Meryl, you know, you helped out, is that it's not a hard gate. But I think there's concern that the timeline is tight, number one. Number two is local actions and approvals a hard gate? And the answer is not really. It's a gate, but we should be able to move through the PSR. Please chime in if I'm overstepping, Hank, on this, but the PSR can continue, but there was concern about that. Second thing is MSBA funding, in terms of how far it can go and not go. Typical question we always get in these projects. When we go to the other constituents in the town, they're like, doesn't MSBA fund it all? No, it's not. You know, if we want to do a theater or want to do 2 theaters, a gym, where does that play? So it was just loose conversation around there, but I think what's happening is that there's a financial undercurrent here, which you would expect. What can we fund and not fund? What can we cut back? More importantly, and I know you know who the person is basically saying, is it really worth, can we get a $300 million building and program in a $200 million program? Do we really have to spend $400 million to get a $200 million? So the money is floating, that's number one. And then the other bit was just the community involvement. I think you said that, Hank, and is that I think we have an action coming out of that meeting to try and get a sub meeting in parallel on communications. It is complex project. We know we've done time and time again, but what ends up happening is that everybody jumps in to the process way down the road and says, why didn't we consider this? Why didn't we consider that? And knowing that there's probably going to be an override. How can we make sure we as PVC, I think, have a very comfortable feeling of all this stuff? Yes, they're complex. We take our steps, but we understand it. Not everybody outside of this room really understands what goes on, understands what a stage gate is or what a segment of the process is, the PSR, PDP. At what point do we stop and vote, et cetera? How can we make sure that the school committee, select board, PVC, the working committee, school building committee, principals, all those are involved, get level set. And I think one suggestion is really to have that meeting and see how can we make sure we have one document, one website that everybody can point to and articulate from in any meeting that we're in. So that probably was the highest bit of dialogue. And then the alternate site. That was the other question really was what is that going to involve? Do we have enough time to look at the alternate sites and consider it? And Hank obviously brought up from the perspective of SBA, we'll only need one alternate site. We've already been swimming around it. And that also goes into, I think, for you, the architects, is a little bit of dialogue around the same thing with tight timelines. Can you come up to speed well enough from the studies that have been done in this town? Doran Whittier's done a lot, so they're well ingrained. How quickly can you come up to curve? So alternate sites, programming and everything else doesn't slow us down and create headwinds in that timeline. That was the general discussion. And the only other thing was the communications. And then trying to have a monthly meeting, a monthly meeting for chairs, because they felt that every 2 months, 3 months is not enough given this timeline and the crunch. I don't know if you want to add anything from your perspective, but
Yeah,
you were there.
I think the other thing that I've been trying to emphasize is just the importance of, you know, always framing in terms of the school master plan. And I don't know if Kyle can't see this, but this this slide that kind of lays out the benefits of kind of doing Pollard as a bigger project. Moving kids then from Mitchell into High Rock. Making Mitchell the right size, whatever our enrollment projections are 10 years down the road when we're doing that. It's a very well thought out and actually cost effective. Sequence of doing things and so, you know. I think some of the people that are very dollars and cents focused are like, well, 2 grade schools cheaper than a 3 grade school. It's like, well, yes, in the moment. But if you think over 20 years, it is absolutely not. And by the way, we got some pockets that are reimbursing us on a percentage basis. Let's go big and maximize that reimbursement, because who knows if they're gonna come back and reimburse Mitchell. We were really lucky to get them to accept Pollard after having done SUNY to Williams so recently. That they may say enough. The MSBA may cease to exist, given what's going on in the federal level, or may cease to exist in the degree of ability to reimburse. So, you know, this slide, this like summary slide, Hank, I think, and I think everybody here, and I will bring it to the next chairs meeting. I think everybody has to have it memorized and, you know, tell the story of why this is so
And
important.
and the timeline's important, and the last point was a request from that discussion. That given the tight timelines, will the PVC please, though we know they'll do it, but need to voice it, will PVC please stay tuned to the timeline? And we're requesting careful consideration if we can do it or not do it at any point in time. We feel we're gonna go over, we feel we really can't do the project, there's really issues. They need to be voiced. So that was just a request. We do it anyways, but I think it was a fair verbalization of that.
Thank you both for your great summaries.
And I think the other point that's important is that we tend to do projects on a fairly rapid basis, faster than some people are comfortable with, but we've been very successful at doing that. Faster than MSBA normally does things. We've pushed them on a number of projects and they appreciate that. But that also saves you money if you do it the right way, saves you money in the process. And so it might look like a tight timeline, and it is a tight timeline, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be saving money and being much more efficient in the process. So we've got to kind of stick to our guns in a way of meeting that timeline, because we know that it's saving the project money in the long run. And ending up educating the town that that's the way you really should do things. So. Lots of issues.
Unless there are other questions on this, I do want to give you a chance to talk a bit about your firm. And I just so happen to have a slide. set of slides. All of this was distributed to the PVC in advance of this meeting. And all you need to say is next slide, and I will go to the next slide.
Sure. I think some of you have already seen this. This is a piece of our interview that we gave at the MSBA, but so if we're going too slow in your board, tell us, we'll keep it going. So this is our team that we brought to the interview. We thought it was important to bring Gary Brock. He's our sustainability leader in the office, and he'll be part of this project. We also brought Mike Perillo, who talked with Matt about our thoughts around educational planning and what it takes to build a middle school. That, you know, age group of kids is different than others, and you need to do it right. So he'll do a little bit of that tonight. And then we brought Niles from RFS. He talked about sustainability and ways to, you know, meet the town's goals for sustainability and the schools. And then also our site consultants, our landscape architect, David Warner, and Steve Garvin from Samiotis. The sites will be challenging, but exciting. The Pollard site's gorgeous, you know, with the beautiful trees and the slope, very exciting. So it's gonna be a great project. Next. So we are a 50-person women-owned business in Cambridge. We specialize in schools, so all these folks that you see here came to work at HMFH because they love schools, and it's really important to all of us. Next. We've done over 150 schools in New England over the 55 years. 40 of those are middle schools, so we understand that population. We know how to design a middle school. 80 of them have been renovations, a lot of them on occupied sites. So I know there's a lot of concern around it's a tight site, but we've done it a lot and we can do this successfully. A lot of grade reconfigurations also and population, changes to kind of think through as a group, and those are always somewhat controversial to communities because people get set in the way they do things now. And so it's a process to lead them through what could it be if it's different and why that would be better. We talked about our sustainability a lot. We have the first and second LEED Platinum certified MSBA buildings. We have a net positive energy school, our elementary school. And we have done over 4 million square feet of LEED and CHIPS certified buildings. So this will be a healthy, sustainable school. And then Matt and Mike talked about, middle school planning and design. And so he can walk you through that as much as you can tolerate for the evening.
Thanks. Yeah, at this stage in the interview, Mike and I were kind of going back and forth quite a bit. So I'm going to kind of do Mike's parts for him, and I'll have to read because I didn't memorize his parts into heart. Next slide. But Mike was making the point that when you think about design for middle schoolers, we begin with an idea of the educational vision and a shared foundation for teaching and learning. You can go to the next slide, Hank. Space and culture, and his process is grounded in a voice of the community, including educators, students, and families, and it's designed to spark imagination, yet stay pragmatic and rooted in core values. He begins by looking at strong precedents and where educational design is going, teaching and learning and practices, and then a series of interactive workshops with different size groups, asking the right questions, doing deep dives into programmatic and organizational topics, and building a framework that aligns with teaching, learning, and space. Mike is if you could just linger on the last slide for a second. He's a former middle school teacher himself, so he understands how complex the middle school age is. Kids are growing fast, figuring out who they are, navigating a lot social and emotionally, and the right environment can make a big difference. And when students feel safe and supported, they're more engaged, more confident, and ready to learn. And that's why everything that he's involved in has to reflect the unique needs of this age group, not just academically, but developmentally, in the best way to create the most responsible building possible. Next slide. So here I switch back to me, and I say how the visioning process is really important to us, the way we look at it, because this is when things come out that you may not have anticipated before. And in Weymouth, they went into their new middle school, the Chapman Middle School project, really understanding that they wanted that school to be a feeder to their high school's career tech program. They knew that. But coming out of the process, they actually expanded that to understand that a really robust program of exploratories was beneficial not only to the students who did want to take a career tech path, but to all the middle school students, and really expanding the modes of education for them. And these are just some pictures of the specialized exploratory spaces in Chapman Middle School. Next. So thinking about the social and emotional health and well-being of a middle school student, we really think about how to form a community for them. A cluster, in this instance, you have a group of classrooms all centered around a open space, and this really becomes the center of gravity for the students within that cluster for the year. It's their home base, and it should feel like really a small school within a school. Next slide. Within that cluster, it's dependent upon a whole range of types of spaces that serve different needs. And types of learning activities within that student's domain for the year. Next slide. Mike talked about more and more how the need to maximize inclusionary practices, provide both scheduled and impromptu tiered interventions and supports on team. That's so important. Having small group spaces and breakup spaces, some more quiet than others, allows for interventions to take place in a variety of scales. Next. This is a cluster that's made up of 4 classrooms, arranged around this project-based learning space. This allows visual connections to be made both into and across the space. That's important because it enables supervision, which is important to reduce chances for bad behaviors such as bullying, but it also at the same time creates a sense of connection and excitement from the learning that's going on around the students. And here Mike talked about middle schoolers seeking attention, yet they don't love being in a fishbowl or being on display. So together we'll explore how to best balance transparency to find that sweet spot between independence and supervision. Students learn from each other and from seeing the work that they're doing together. They also take pride in the work that they do and seeing it up on display. So we use things like in the lower right, a double-sided display case so that you can look through and see the learning that's happening beyond. We use whiteboard surfaces, which are great because you can mark on them, but you can also use them for pinup because they're magnetic, and those can go anywhere. We use lots of tack surfaces. Just the idea that learning is happening everywhere is an important understanding. Learning spaces should have views to the outdoors, period. And seeing green whenever possible is important. That's been shown to reinforce learning. Being able to get up and move easily to the outdoors is also important. Ideally, there would be an outdoor classroom right outside of each cluster. In middle schoolers, the importance of outdoor experiences and natural daylight isn't just some educational design trend. Instead, it's a necessity. It does so much to impact the need for movement and the social emotional needs of teens. It offers moments to reset, regulate, reconnect, and it's not just a design feature, it's a learning support. So when we're talking about learning communities in a really large school, like the Pollard potentially will be in a 6 through 8 configuration, we work really hard to address scale, and we want to break that down that scale. So at the Chapman Middle School, these plans are from, that was designed as the largest middle school in the state when it opened a few years ago. Here in grades 7th and 8th, the 2 wings to the left, it's configured with teaching teams, which are 5 classrooms per team. This includes 4 core subjects plus a world language in each team. And we embed the red color represents special education. So we're embedding special education right within those neighborhoods. They're not off somewhere else. We also include in that interiorized core space of the lighter yellow color, a lot of the group supports, small group rooms, inclusionary rooms, resource rooms, so that they're right there on team. They don't have to travel very far to get to the specialists, or they don't have to go far for specialists to get to the classrooms. Now, Weymouth wanted to treat 6th grade a little bit differently. They saw it as a transition from elementary school. And so there, the teams were configured in a smaller scale. And these are 2 classrooms per team. You can see that on the right. It's a classroom with ELA history and a classroom with math science. And those were paired together. Next slide. And the pair of those 2 classrooms was connected by an operable partition. So that could be opened up and create a co-teaching environment. Or you have the choice to close it and have acoustically isolated classrooms. So, that's how our projects are successful.
And then we transitioned into what we do to get the community involved and making sure we do that on all levels. So it's the teachers, the educators, the administrators, all the way, down to the community. And that's. And we talk about how HMFH schools in every district that we build, our schools look different because, it's not a reflection of us, it's a reflection of all of you in the community that you're in. Next. And the building that we'll design for you will celebrate Needham, and be very specific to you, and the children and the educators will feel a connection to that place. Yeah, and these are some of our theaters. We use this as an excuse to show some of our pretty pictures in the interview. All the different theaters that we've designed for folks, and then sort of left it with some of the graphics that we put in our buildings to get kids excited about learning and feel like they're being celebrated in this building that's being built for them.
That's it. Thank you, Burton. Very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Beautiful photos. I'm reminded when you mentioned about the opening up to green space, the vistas and so forth. When my firm first went hybrid, we had from online some speakers from the University of California Business School. This was a popular course in their particular school. And they talked about the fact that very important that when you situate your desk at home, make sure it's at a window where you can take your eyes off the computer screen and look out at green space. It's very, very salubrious, helps really just with your concentration, and it just rests, it's very restful and just puts you in a better mindset, better mind. So I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
And you have a great site for that.
Yeah.
George? Anything else, Hank?
We have a few voting items.
We do? Okay, great.
Including your contract.
Yes. Well, I have the contract and let's see, what else do I?
That's on the. Share those few pages with you.
I've got the do that. Yeah, I'll start with that. All right, the chair will move that the committee award the contract to HMFH Architects for design services in the base amount of $1,812,103.50. And it's $1,812,130.50. Is there a second on that motion? Second. Thank you, George. Discussion on the motion. Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Thank you. Lynn?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Who is here? Elisa?
Aye.
Thank you. And Tamitha?
Aye.
And I'm the chair votes aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Doctor, is there anything else on the docket for the Apollo project?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, great. Very good.
We should probably go and get drawing.
We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Like,
Yeah.
quick
Good.
question.
There.
Are we planning to have followers on our agenda every meeting?
Certainly every month. And we're also going to be looking to opportunities where there can be joint meetings between the school committee and the PVBC. And we will certainly alert you to all of the meetings that are occurring within the project. And we may need to come back twice a month, but
Well, I think, from my experience, there's a lot of good reasons to have meetings very frequently at the beginning of the project. Where a lot of these overarching decisions that are really going to affect the rest of the project. So I would be very much in favor of erring on the side of having too many meetings and then not enough.
And we may even have a meeting over at Pollard in the media center.
As long as it's not raining.
Sam, you need buckets?
Couple buckets, yeah.
Rainwater recycling, I like it.
Anyway, that's my message.
Very good. Thank you, George.
Yes, understood.
Any other questions or comments from the committee before we move on to our next topic? Very good. All right, thank you.
Freaking early. Oh, we've been out all day.
Stuart, you can come over to the big kids table now, right?
Hey, we get to work with Niles
So
again.
much.
That's awesome that he's on the team.
Feel left out over there and they're not getting any pie when
I was quite
time for
happy
dessert.
hanging out. And, did you distribute that, that other sheet?
Yeah, yeah, it was in the back.
I forgot to mention that in the back of the summary is an attachment that was part of their submission that included the rest of their team. And RFS is the MEP engineer and the head. Niles Tour, we worked with recommissioning the buildings during COVID. And we've had RFS on a couple other commissioning. They haven't been on as the designers on any of the recent projects, but I think they have been over time. Rich Strauss.
They're great.
Yeah, Niles.
Terrific. We'll move on to our next discussion item, which is the Emery Grove project. Ken?
Okay.
Infamous sound issue. That's coming off the speakers.
Is it?
Yeah.
There we go. Thanks. I mean, I like to hear myself talk. Just trying to amplify it. Thank you very much. Making some progress with the sound issue. We brought in Lawrence Copley, who most of you know, as more than just Catherine's husband. But he's a well-regarded acoustic engineer. And he came in and his recent report verified, yes, indeed, that some sound dampening is necessary. But he thinks he may have found an alternative to what the engineer proposed. That's likely less expensive than what we currently have out there. So we're gonna pursue that end of it. We're not pointing fingers in any direction just now. We need to get it done. It needs to be fixed. And we'll worry about the pay end of that as we go along. But for right now, we're going to send this back to the engineers, have them look at Lawrence's proposal. And in the meantime, when he comes back from his globe-trotting trip to Malta, and Catherine is going with him, we'll get more into the trying to figure out what happened and how it happened to go from point A to point B. I did meet with both Mitsubishi and Trane. The unit was bought through Trane, but it's a Mitsubishi manufacturer. Mitsubishi owns Trane, but not to confuse that end of the issue, but they both came out. We all verified that the units are operating within the proper parameters. And now we have to figure out how they modeled it to get it below, how they modeled it to be below the 40 decibel threshold at the property line, when in fact it's roughly 57. So, but we'll continue to work on that as we go along, but right now we need to minimize the cost, and then we'll have to move into getting the work done. We do have money to do it. And then if we need to seek reimbursement from certain parties, we'll do that at the end of or as we go along, right now, we need to work on a solution and go from there.
And are there any interim solutions, anything that can be done just to mitigate the impacts now?
Yeah. Sure, you know, anything we did to try and mitigate it would just decrease the efficiency of the units and
Yeah.
for fear of trying to burn it out or
Right.
something. It's, they know that the owners, the condo owners know we're working on it, so. A few more questions to be answered, Mitsubishi and training, we're going back and, try to get some answers, but as the rep from Mitsubishi said, he goes, the higher ups in Mitsubishi are, you don't want to say it's state secrets, but you think it was, and they're very slow in responding, so.
Yeah.
We'll have to take that as we go.
Mhm.
Anybody got any questions?
You wanna talk about planting,
Or what type?
replant?
Oh, well, if you've gone by, you've noticed that the arborvitae's have all been replaced as part of the landscape warranty. And they still got a few more shrubs they gotta come in and replace. Supposedly, we're gonna have some punch list work done on Thursday, Friday, Thursday, or Friday, the carpenter's coming from O'Connor. Hopefully bash out the rest of the punch list, but we still have some warranty items that the landscapers need to take care of.
Fresh memory, was the lawn part of that?
It's not a, there's some spots that they need to reseed,
Okay.
but it's not, actually, compared to what I thought was gonna be, needed to be done over
Yeah.
the winter.
Yeah.
To the way it grew in the spring, it's almost, in my head, I was making a mountain out of a molehill. So, but there are some spots that they do need to reseed. Yes.
Any questions or comments regarding Emery Grover? Doing none, I guess we can proceed to the.
When the invoice on
Yes,
that?
we do, yeah. Okay. The chair will move that the committee approve the invoice for payment from RG Vanderweil. That's for April 2025 commissioning services, the amount of $223 even. Is there a second that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Is there, motion made and seconded? Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you.
Is that work essentially done then?
I believe,
What, for the commissioning?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their last, that's the close up. You still gotta make some tweaks to the final report, but that's all done.
terrific, right? Anything else regarding Emery Grover before we move on? Okay.
We do have to, though,
Yeah.
just to jump back, we do have to, we've got a particular for, to get a hold of the commissioning agent for, the 1st of July to do I'll just call it the second season. We commissioned back in essentially heating season. So now we're gonna do a recommissioning on the cooling side. Yeah. So hopefully eliminate as many problems as we can for Barry.
Thanks. Now ask any other questions or comments regarding Emery Grover? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to our next agenda item, which is the RT replacement at Elliott and Blythe. Ken.
We had a kickoff meeting for Cloud Meadow last week. They'd already started doing some work over there in the boiler room. They've been working second shift after school. And they've landed the air source heat pump. It's installed out back. They'll be piping that soon. The whole enclosure, well, the fence isn't up, but the retaining wall is built and the air source heat pump is installed. They've done some other work in the boiler room itself. They've been out there today. They'll be out there tomorrow. And they'll be going full bore starting next Tuesday. School's out Monday, so they'll be shutting things down on Tuesday. And we'll be lifting the units, dropping the new ones, curbs, the roof work, the whole 9 yards. So we had a good meeting last week. There have been no issues so far. And we'll just see how it rolls out when we go full board next week.
Very good.
And any summer programs?
No, it was already, no, they were already notified, but no, they're not.
Except some administrative people in the building.
They might be, but they'll have no air conditioning, so they were already going, you know where they're going? Do you remember were they going over to,
Some of them might be working remotely, but otherwise, I think maybe the high school.
yeah, they've either gone to high school, they've either going to the high school or, maybe over
As
to,
long as there are any programs there,
yeah, no,
it
no.
should be fine.
No, we let them know last year, not to schedule programs for this summer. Similar to what happened at Elliott for last summer.
Yeah, Elliot is sponsoring some of those summer programs as well as Sunita Williams. This year.
That's it.
Okay, very good. We will, just we can move on then to our next agenda item.
There's one voting item.
One voting item,
Maybe I think they use one.
Yes, you're right,
voice
right.
for,
a little bigger than the last reading.
Yeah, that's important. The chair will move that the committee approve the requisition for payment from CAM HVAC and Construction. That's in the amount of $206,596.50. Again, it's $206,596.50 out of the general contractor's budget. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Second,
Thank you. Discussion on the motion?
Gotta speak up, Lynn.
Okay.
I don't hear that a lot.
Well, far be it from me.
Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, we'll proceed to the roll call vote then. Stuart? Thank you. Lynn?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
George?
aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Thank you. Gary?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. You. And that's it for our chief replacement. Very good. Thank you, Ken. Okay, next agenda item is the human theater assistant. I see Brandon has joined us. Thank you, Brandon. Welcome as always. And well, Hank,
Yeah, I'll kick things off. I distributed the bid results that we got from let's see, 5 bidders. And the low bidder is Enise Electrical Company. We have worked with Enise. We worked with Enise on the Elliott rooftop unit replacement project. Quite frankly, they were the only bid that we could accept. All the other ones would have been beyond our budget. And as I noted in the budget sheet, we do have contingency, but it means our department won't be charging any time against this project until things move further down the line. We've had initial review with Enise, and we've gone through to get other recommendations. They occupy adjacent offices to Enterprise, which is why Enterprise and Enise are joined together. on
They're usually
this
restricted to
project.
enterprise.
Yeah.
But Enterprise didn't bid on this, so they bid it on their own.
Support each other.
And they have sufficient capacity, they have decam capacity. So we would like to award that bid this evening. And as I mentioned, we do have a very, very tight budget. Our current budget, well, the appropriation that came this past May has enough to cover this plus some reserve, but we're really dipping into funds that we didn't spend from the original appropriation in order to cover expenses. That original appropriation, as you may recall, is also covering the cost of Walker Specialties work, which is the safety and compliance work, phase 2. They've completed Pollard and they'll be moving into work on the Newman School. The day after school ends, they'll be there for about 2 to 3 weeks. and from there moving over to the high school. Fortunately, Barry's doing other work at Newman, so there are no students in the building this summer. The work for the theater sound and light improvements will be done in the summer of 2026. In my initial discussion with Anise, they were very appreciative for that advanced planning. I think they may be taking on some risk relative to tariffs. But all of the bids were above what our estimated cost was. And I suspect that they've built some of that anticipated additional tariff money into their bids. And the subs to Anise are Port Lighting, who we haven't worked with, but they've attended every single briefing session that we've had along the way. They are more than capable of accomplishing the work that needs to be done. And the second sub is Pro AV Systems. I should note that both Anise and Pro AV are WBEs. So the majority of this work will be completed by a WBE firm. In discussion with the IT department, they have not yet worked with Pro AV, but they are interested in working with them. They are currently working on the third floor of the Emery Grover building with CCS presentations, who was party to the systems contracting bid, but that even though that component was lower, systems contracting was the high bid. Out of the 1, 2, 3, 4. We did receive a proposal, I'll call it, from this company, TriTech Communications, but they didn't respond to the bid itself. It was like they were trying to cover the AV portion only. So I can display that bid tabulation sheet if you're interested, but I think you all had copies of that. Any other questions about that bid?
So the extent of our contingency as we start the project is approximately what
Is
percentage wise?
approximately 174,000. After
Which is
percentage wise, it's less than 10%. Actually, 142,000. So it's less than 10% we move into the bill.
Still probably eligible to do it.
It'll be tight. We will be very tight on any extra services. There's one alternate which we did not accept. Their alternate number one was for larger touchpads at the backstage and also at the booth areas. It's something that IT is strongly recommending. But in my initial discussions, both with IT and with Anise, we felt as though there may be some compromise where the town could supply that equipment and the contractor could wire all that equipment. And we don't have to come to that conclusion immediately, because if the town supplies the equipment, we could probably postpone that decision until January of next year, or even later. By that time, we will have finished all of the Walker Specialties work, which their total contract was only 100,000. I'm not anticipating any change orders yet. But the other thing that we have to coordinate with IT is adding fob access controls to certain portions of the equipment and some of the doors upstairs, where the AV door, for instance, AV rack in the back racks. And we're talking directly to ENE Security and hope to get a direct number on that. And if we're forced to, we might go back to the school department. Are you listening, Ann? To cover some of those added costs if the project can't fund it. So yes, we're tight, but I think it's achievable.
Okay, Brandon, do you have any other comments you'd like to make, conversation, or before we move on?
No, Hank did a great job, summarizing and getting the group here up to speed. The bids were relatively nested together. So while our cost estimate, while the bids exceeded our cost estimate, we feel confident about the bids that we did receive were accurate construction pricing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And any other questions for Hank or I guess? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to the different voting items on the Theater Sound and Light Improvements Project. The first is that the chair will move that the committee award the contract to Anise Electrical Services in the base amount of $178,000 even on the general contractor's budget. Is there a second on the motion? Sure. Thank you, Bob. Discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
George? Aye. Ann?
Aye.
I don't think Leanne is here tonight, but the chair votes aye.
She apologized. She has a performance this evening.
No worries.
He has to attend.
Okay, the next item is change order, is a change order. And the motion, the chair rather will move that the committee approve the PSS from Q-Shot. That's for change CA for Newman Theater Sound TSU in the amount of 32,000 even. That's out of the architect's budget. Is there a second on that motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Bob. Discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. And then we have two invoices. The first is for Q-Shot. The second is for Project Dog. First, the chair will move that the committee approve the invoice for payment from Q-Shot for May 2025 services at Newman in the amount of $8,000 even coming out of the designer budget. Is there a second on that motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Bob. All right, so motion made and seconded into discussion. Here now we'll proceed to roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. And finally, under Theater Sound and Lighting, we have the invoice from Project Dog. The chair will move that the committee approve the invoice for payment from Project Dog as for bid hosting and printing services in the amount of $953.28. That's out of the miscellaneous budget. Is there a second on that motion?
Sure.
Thank you, Bob.
Well, Bob's on a roll.
Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. And I think that's everything for Theater Sound and Light. Any last questions or comments before we move on? Hearing none. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Brandon. We'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Hard not to vote.
Two eyes. And then the voice comes out here.
Right in there.
And I'm like,
Sorry about that.
I said I was like, whoa, eyes are coming at you. You seen these things?
It's not a hustle.
With the two owl eyes?
Oh, yeah, creepy.
Yeah, and then it speaks right there. It's like, ooh.
Okay.
If it wasn't for the eyes, I'd be okay.
Yeah.
What's next to you?
The next item on the agenda is the Center at the Heights Stage 1, and we have a guest from PH+A, Jeremy Tobin. Welcome, Jeremy. And I think Hank and Ken, then.
Yeah, in the effort to tear down a few more trees, I'll pass these around. I did distribute these digitally, but it'll be helpful to remind folks about the conclusion of the master plan for the bath renovation. And Tim has also joined us. Jeremy, should we go around the room and introduce ourselves? Would that be helpful?
Yes, if quickly, if that's all right.
You know me, Hank Haff.
Yep.
I should preface this that we have worked with Jeremy on the Hillside project when it was renovated for the Emery Grover temporary offices. And the other Nancy Johnson is not on the call this evening, but she will be designing and working with Jeremy through the project.
Hi, Jeremy, Lynn Daniger.
No,
Jeremy Michael Rice, school committee, I'm just lurking for this part of the meeting. Barry Dulon, building maintenance.
Jeremy, Ken Sargent.
Ken.
George Kent, building committee.
Richard Crean, Building Committee, and Chair of the Committee.
Jeremy, about Jeremy, committee member.
Hi, Jeremy. Marilyn Nisler, working with Hank and Ken in the Building Design and Construction Department. And Catherine too.
Elisa Scatcherd, school committee, also just lurking.
Hi, Stuart Chandler from the PEC.
And Catherine Copley, administrative specialist for the Building Design and Construction Department.
And you've already met Tim.
Yeah, welcome, Tim. Sorry.
Yep.
Now I need to, so that we, minimize this. You all have slides, but Tim is remote. I will.
Not a problem. I can listen and follow along.
Okay. Because I'll have to dig to find them. So the renovation schedule. We've already achieved the design funding, schematic design will be done over the summer. The long-term goal obviously is to get construction funding in May of 2026. And to do so, we'll be speeding through schematic design, design development, and completing construction documents by February of 2026. So we can go through the bidding in March and April. We'll likely have multiple filed sub-bids. But we won't know that until we start going through the schematic design. On the second page, and again, Jeremy, these are taken from the BH+A prior analysis. There are upgrades to the kitchen and in addition, vestibule to the back entryway that comes into the multi-purpose room. The kitchen upgrades would be converting it from a demonstration residential scale kitchen to a commercial kitchen, with the goal of being able to eventually, if staff funding is available, to take on board the Meals on Wheels program or what do you call it, Tim?
Traveling meals program.
Traveling meals, okay. Currently, is there a series of pieces to that? We did have a meeting last week with Tim and met others at the CAF, and during that discussion, there appear to be opportunities for adjusting the vestibule that VH+A will look into, both in terms of design and ease of construction. We also came to the conclusion that Barry's work associated with the emergency generator wouldn't impact this schedule. The next page in your group there, the idea is to swap the locations of the fitness room and the game room to enlarge the fitness room from 1,000 square feet to 1,300 square feet to fit more equipment. It's very heavily programmed currently, and they need more space. And again, while walking through with Tim and in prior discussions, the CAF folks want to look at other options. And those other options are on the next page, where potentially fitness, or more likely the game room, could move upstairs to corner space where we might have to take down a wall or two. And that would allow the fitness to have the fitness room, and then potentially have what's the program space on the upper floors is used a lot for aerobics and other, and that would enable those two programs to be off side by side. So all of those variations will be studied. Are you ready for that, Jeremy?
Yes, we're ready.
And then the last image, which is the site plan, shows that the first step, which was the town leasing back 13 spaces along Highland Avenue or Hillside Avenue, which enables additional parking both for staff and for patrons, and the creation of 2 additional handicap spaces in the front of the building. And that then enables taking away 3 spaces for the generator. And the generator location in the hatch area is located there because of a sound study of all things. That in order to block the noise across the Hillside Avenue to one of the abutters, that generator has to be in the shadow, if you will, of the sound shadow of the senior center. And those additional spaces will also enable a rejiggering, I think, of the handicap spaces that are near the back of the building, and putting them closer to that new rear vestibule, while maintaining the required zoning parking, and actually increasing the zoning parking. Because we are touching the exterior of the building, we will have to go back to the planning board, hopefully for a de minimis change or a minor change. So, Jeremy, what have I left out?
I don't know. I think you covered most of what we're looking at. You know, we have to coordinate with various town departments to try and, you know, get everything together, but that shouldn't be an issue.
And you have a team that includes kitchen designer, MEP.
Yep.
Probably you won't need any structural.
Probably not, but if we do, we have people we work with all the time, so that shouldn't be an issue to find somebody. Maybe some light civil and landscaping.
Might need it if you take a wall down upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we determine which way we're gonna go with those options, we'll move on with that if we need it.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any lateral requirements because all the lateral stabilization was built into the enclosed stairways within the building. But we'll see whether any columns are impacted.
I had a question about the parking.
Yeah.
You said we were leasing back from MBTA. Parking spaces from their lot.
Yeah.
In other words, they'll have less spaces available in their lot. We'll have more spaces available.
That is correct. And the signs are already out.
Okay.
It took a year to get one. Negotiated.
And I think there are only a few handicapped accessible spaces there.
So currently there are only 3.
And they're all out in the back
All
corner.
in the back. And so we've added 2 in the front. And we could add, let's see, there are currently 4 in the back. Or there's 5 in the back. We can keep. What we're thinking, George, is shifting all of the handicap spaces closer to the handicapped entrance in the back. And we have some flexibility in terms of adding more handicap spaces beyond what was originally approved. So currently with the new 2 in the front, we have 3 in the back, that's 5. We could make the 3 in the back equal to 4 or 5.
Are we increasing number of spaces on the street and hillside?
No, those are not reserved for use by the senior center.
Well, that was part of my question. Are we looking into whether or not we can reserve some of those during the day? Because there's never enough space in that parking lot. Never is that hard to, but there's very often very little space.
Yeah.
At busy times. So if you could temporarily lease or temporarily get some additional spaces along hillside during the day, that might be helpful as long as it doesn't mess up traffic patterns.
Yeah, the ironic thing is that there are in the planning approval, I guess I need to reread it. There's parking spaces in the lot behind the post office that were reserved for staff use during peak periods. And that's really a management. And I believe that opportunity for that remote parking still exists. But then that would require management of staff to make sure that they park there. If we're going to reserve spaces along the street, that would have to go through the town to the traffic advisory committee. And if we can look into that.
There are currently on-street parking spaces there.
Yes.
But they're just not reserved.
Right.
My suggestion might be that we reserve a few extra spaces if we could for daytime parking only. And that might help to alleviate parking issues. Tim, have you seen that to be the case? That there's hardly ever enough parking spaces available?
Almost always the case. If you come at the very beginning of the day or the very end of the day, you can probably get a spot. Otherwise, you have to sort of circle once or twice, like the mall at Christmas type of thing. Um, I I mean, I think I'd love to talk about renting more MBTA spaces. I just think it took Kate and Katie a long time to make that happen, and I think I wouldn't want to be the first one to go in and suggest it. So I think we got to give a little cooling off period to before we renegotiate another lease with the MBTA. I do think one of our challenges remains, and we've expanded the fleet in terms of being able to offer. We have 3 handicap accessible vans and a car as well. We've tried to encourage people to carpool, and it just is not something that really is of interest to most folks at Cath. So either they drive or they rely on the van to pick them up. So adding these spaces helps, but they're already full most days now, these new spaces.
That's part of why I suggested if we could reserve a few more of the on-street parking, that might help a little bit. It might be able to add 2 or 3 spaces during the day.
Yep.
We could add, would be good. Just a suggestion, you might want to look into that, Hank.
Okay. Yeah, and Tim, just from your experience, do you find that people who are coming to the CAF often park along the street?
Yes, some of the seniors do park along the street. I would say most of the street parking spaces are taken up by either patrons or staff members. Occasionally there's someone who parks there that then walks to the train, but that's not all that common.
And isn't there a time limit for parking there? I don't know if there are meter maids that come out. There are no
meters.
No meters. So in effect, George, they may already be used largely for that purpose.
Actually, I just looked on Google Earth and there's a sign that says Cath parking only 8 to 2, Monday to Friday on the street.
Already.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's solid. Where is that? Okay.
I
It
don't
was
know.
such a good idea that we already did it, and I forgot about it.
Full disclosure, the images from November 20.
Tim, you are so fast.
Tim, just make sure in the morning that the signs really are still there.
Have you noticed, just, this is a kind of a side issue, but have you noticed the speeding cars are less and less? Or are they still,
The 4-way stop has helped a lot.
what's that?
The 4-way stop has helped a lot.
Yeah,
At least in
Yeah.
terms of our patrons being comfortable coming out on Hillside and taking either going straight or taking a left. Yeah.
yeah, that tended to be a speedway there, and about 6 or 8 months ago, my granddaughter and her husband lived right on Hillside, on the side of the street, and they complained that they can't get their car out of the driveway without somebody almost hitting them every day. And even the 4-way stop hasn't slowed them down enough, but there's still a lot of accidents that occur in that 4-way stop, but maybe they'll get used to it. Who knows?
And those signs are on both of those stretches there, the one next to the parking lot and the one next to the building. So that's 8 spaces.
Yeah.
Theoretically. I don't know who's monitoring well.
Okay, anything else regarding Cath?
I did have one other question. Who's on your kind of in-house subcommittee to hash this stuff around? Tim?
So the Council on Aging board takes the summer off. So they're on our list for sort of a focus group with the architect in September, their first meeting back. We are going to have discussions with Colleen and 1 or 2 other individual COA board members, as well as the professional staff. The director of school nutrition services, Emily Murphy, previous directors of school nutrition services have given sort of advice and feedback in terms of thinking about the kitchen and I think we'll try to tap Emily as well for her expertise. The people who run the fitness room at Cath are certified personal trainers that have experience working with geriatric populations. So we'll talk to them and have the architect team talk to them. I know one of the things that they're really interested in is if they did reconfigure the fitness room, could they do a water treadmill? And I don't know what is involved with that, but that seems complicated. So if that's something they think is necessary for seniors as they're trying to get exercise, maybe we can work and figure out a way to have a water treadmill inside the fitness room.
That can't be on the second floor.
Good point.
Put you on the power roof.
Like back in the day with the water beds and your landlords wouldn't let you have water beds, so.
Put it on the deck and dating yourself there, Ken.
The fact that you know that I'm dating myself.
Sure you were a great date.
So we have sufficient numbers involved in getting everybody's input. Or enough input. Good.
Yes, and we did meet with Tim and Latanya, with the architects.
Yeah, so we have, I think, 4 things that we're going to try to set up in, June and July, and then we'll see where we are for August, but a couple more in September. I do think we want 1 or 2 sort of focus groups and discussions with sort of the patrons of Cath, and in particular, if we are thinking about moving the game room, and we are, I think there is, the game room has almost 100% utilization rate. It's used by a small group of people that use it from sun up to sundown, essentially. So we want to, they are going to have to accept, some changes and maybe some smaller space. We do want to figure out how to make that space the best it can be for them. They play pool, they host tournaments with other senior centers. They really enjoy it. So if we're going to move them and potentially give them a slightly smaller space, we're going to try to make sure it's a great space.
Okay, anything else on Cath before we move on? All right, very good. We have, under new business, we've got a couple of miscellaneous invoices to take care of. Yeah, okay, yeah, questions I have, yeah. And move forward to the invoice for DPW. I see, let's see, actually, no one from DPW has joined us tonight, but we think we should have a, we have Barry's here. But that's all right. So the chair will move that the committee approve the invoice for payment from Weston and Sampson for May 2025 services in the amount of $22,200 coming out of the designer budget. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll stick this one.
Second.
Great, thanks for you. Discussion on the motion. All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Lynn?
Right?
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
She's not here. Bob, Barry?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. By the way, I think Tim, you're all set, but you're welcome to stay, but thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
The second invoice is for the library renovation young adult section. Rob has joined us. Welcome, Rob. And the chair will move that the committee approve the invoice for payment from Util Incorporated for April 2025 services in the amount of $2,965 out of the architect's budget. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you, George. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Lynn?
Right?
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
And Rob?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. I think that's everything we have for miscellaneous invoices. So thank you, Rob. Appreciate your joining us tonight. Yes,
Yeah, and I
Right.
should mention that we are going to have a kickoff meeting with Tower Construction on Wednesday morning. And one of Ken's other construction projects, which will be picking up in earnest in September, right after Broad Meadow finishes. And then they have until February of 2026 to complete their work. We'll be coordinating on Wednesday with the all of the logistical issues of construction within an occupied building. The contractor will be encouraged to start early. They usually want to show up at 7 anyway. And the library doesn't open up to the public until 9 o'clock. But there are a series of accommodations that the library is doing in terms of moving the teen collection to other areas within the library. They'll be reserving the community room for after-school work for teens, like 2 until 6, I think it is. And just access routes, and we'll be looking to quarry all of the construction workers. There will be a construction barrier wall constructed so that the new wall and all the new work will be inboard of that. And the contractor will be required to put it in negative pressure machines to pull out any construction dust. And they will have the use of the Rosemary Recreation Center upper parking lot starting in September after the pool closes. Now, the upper parking lot would then be where the contractor parks and all their subs park. So they'll have to walk across the street and around. We haven't approached the church to request access to their parking lot. We might want to do that for a dumpster. But we haven't gone there yet. Because as you all know, the church owns that upper parking lot.
That will all come out in the wash on Wednesday when we go over logistics with the tower.
and the Rosemary Complex will have plenty of parking at the lower lot. Their needs over the September through
February.
time.
And there are occasional large uses, but I think that they often occur on weekends.
Yeah.
When we expect the contractor won't be working.
So just the loss of the, on weekends, just the loss of the construction trailer spaces. That's really it. Right. Yeah.
And they might not even have an actual office trailer, they might just have their material, you know, the tools and stuff like that.
Yeah, we might just have a Connex box there.
Anything else on the library project? Anyone? Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
See you Wednesday, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
The last item really is for any new business for the committee, and as Chair has none, I wonder if anyone else would like to say anything voluntary. No, it's not. Okay, we're good. All right. That's the case. We will proceed then to our motion to adjourn. Is there a motion? Thank you.
Oh, wow.
What was the motion this time? Got a second.
Yeah.
If we look ahead at other meetings, we have any idea whether the next meeting will be remote or not?
I think
From a planning perspective.
I think we suggested that one of the 2 June meetings would be in person, and that would be the meeting with the architects. So that's tonight. So next meeting, I would think would be remote unless there's a compelling reason to meet in person. Hank, any your in
I
terms of
think
your
that's correct. And
Yeah.
also you're relying on the second string put together, because Catherine will be away.
okay. So,
second string meaning us.
okay, and does that mean that
Big
you're more
shoes.
comfortable organizing a remote meeting or an in-person meeting?
Well, as long as she teaches me, oh, no, you'll be back.
I'll be
for
back
the
on
meeting.
Monday, right, but you'll have to send out a invitation.
Okay. We'll have a very brief agenda.
Okay.
So
So I think that will be a remote meeting, and I would say, and then, in terms of the July meetings. Again, I think it's subject to the, subject matter of those meetings, and we haven't really gone that far out yet, so,
Yeah, I think our meetings and kickoff meetings and particularly the Pollard meeting tomorrow. We will define both the smaller group schedule meetings as well as the more public meetings. And try to reserve dates for everyone for those large public visioning sessions. And that would we would likely be looking for an opportunity once school gets back in session in early September, although the second might be too tight to hold a joint meeting. And so there may be, George, there may be additional meetings where the school building committee attends. I think you may remember one or two of those with Sunita Williams.
Sure.
And then we broke out and had separate meetings after the joint meeting.
I think we really need to heed what I encouraged us to do later is look at those meetings and say, might be a good idea to have the first meeting of the month deal with Pollard issues, and there'll be plenty of issues that will come up that we need to be involved with, I think, to have remote meetings. That's, I mean, I have it
First
schedule in, but
yeah,
encouraging you to do that.
all right. I think you and I can connect on that and map things out.
yeah. And we also have we got kicked out of the other room. I'm not sure that this is much bigger. But we have the ability to have meetings at Emmett Grover. And I do think. So who has walked through Hillside? I mean, Pollard recently? Anyone? You've been through it? It might be good to hold a meeting there.
Reminders.
Well, I think I would love to go back.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's not changed.
It hasn't changed yet.
That's the problem.
Other than some more water coming in other places.
Yeah,
More
see
work,
if I can find my old locker.
there's more work that needs to be done now than it needed to be done a year ago, that's what I think. And so forth.
I mean, reusable water, they just take the bucket into the bathrooms.
Well, on that note, the motion has been made. Is there, do we second that motion?
Who,
I made the motion.
are you?
Second.
Okay,
Thank you,
Stuart.
thank you, Stuart. Discussion on the motions, the motion to adjourn other than what we've already talked about. Okay. Hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Bob?
Yes, I.
George?
I,
And chair votes aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Can you give me my Christmas present?
Was that?
Can you give me my Christmas present?
Yeah.
Meeting.